Greetings. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by the Nyaradza Group. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today, I'm in conversation with Tinashe Rwodzi, PricewaterhouseCoopers Managing Partner for Zimbabwe and Malawi. Enjoy this inspirational conversation. Tinashe Rwodzi, welcome to In Conversation with Trevor.
Trevor, thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure and honor for you to have me here. I feel so privileged to be part of such a good show.
Thanks, Tinashe. You know, the truth is I've been chasing you around. You are so busy running Zimbabwe and Malawi as the managing partner of PricewaterhouseCoopers, as we normally call it PwC. So I don't take your time for granted. So thank you so much for creating the time.
Thank you, Trevor. I appreciate it. I must apologize to Mabel.
Right.
Who I really gave the runaround because of my busy schedule.
But we're patient. We wait until you're ready.
And she's persistent.
Yeah, very persistent, very persistent. Tinashe, I have to start you from your deciding desperately that you were going to blackmail your father when you couldn't go to school because of the war. There's a theme that goes through your life, particularly the early part of it, is your hunger for education. And your education gets interrupted a number of times by the war. And finally, your old man, your father, decides, I'm enough with this changing of 4 schools. You're no longer going to school. But you decide, no ways, I'm going to stop eating until you send me to school. Talk to me about that.
Trevor, it was actually quite an interesting one and just happened automatically. It's not something that I sat down to think about.
Yeah.
This was after my second closure of a school, and specifically St. Francis of Assisi in Chivu. And I had to walk from St. Francis of Assisi home, which was about 40 kilometers on foot because the school had closed. I got there, of course, my mother cried. My father said, it happens, young man. And then, okay, I'm glad you're back, you're here. Then, of course, word came through that we had been organized a class at Kutama. And I said to my father, Baba, can I please go? He said, no way. Hakuna izozo. You've escaped this war too many times by a close shave. The time will come for you to go back to school, but not now. I pleaded and pleaded, didn't work. Then I just automatically switched into not eating. Of course, I had no concept it was a hunger strike. She just stopped eating.
Yeah.
My mother got worried, told my father. My father said, Chajka, it's okay, leave him. And second day, third day, now this is becoming serious. But the 4th day, my father said, it's okay, you can go. And that's how it played out.
Did mom support you in your hunger strike?
Mom supported me fully. She was obviously terribly worried that I was not eating.
Yeah.
And I suspect behind the scenes, she was putting pressure on the old man.
Yeah.
But my old man was a tough guy. And I actually don't know how he actually related to that and said, you can go.
Tell me, how tough was he?
He was the kind of tough guy who brooked no nonsense. Just to give you 2 examples.
Yeah.
Okay? For the boys, okay, the sun would not rise while you stay in bed. It doesn't matter whether it was a Sunday or a Wednesday. A boy has to be up before sunrise, okay, and see how things are arranged. Okay. Secondly, for the boys, you had to go and work hard. You know, there was no this nonsense, I'm tired, I'm whatever. And if you came through, for instance, and said, there's been mischief at school, and the headmaster says, I want your father here. My father would say, why am I wasting my time and energy? You don't want school? Come. You come work for me here.
But you and I don't do that with our sons anymore.
No, we don't.
Tinashe.
We don't.
We're spoiling them. We're breaking them, aren't we?
If we did that, Trevor, what do they call it? Child abuse.
Abuse.
Yes.
But look at how you turned out.
Oh, that toughening, actually, incidentally, I have conversations with my kids. And I say, you know what? I can never treat you the way my father treats you. But as a result, I'm able to handle things much better in terms of tough things than you guys. Yeah, we just don't treat our kids that same.
We don't. And how was mom? I mean, was she a tough woman, or she was the one that softened things behind the scenes for you to get away with murder?
Fortunately, she's still around.
Oh, wow. Okay. Awesome
I'm
stuff.
very blessed to still have her.
Excellent.
And she is the apple of my eye. I know we normally say that about our daughters. But
how old is she now?
She's 86.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Mom was very supportive. Okay? But in her support, she had a firmness that said, yes, your father is really tough on you, but he's right. Okay. Tell you one simple instant. We all grew up herding cattle. Yeah. Okay, so I go herd cattle, and of course they go astray. They go into a neighbor's field. Come back home in the evening. The old man says, come for a beating. Okay, and I duly walk to him to get beaten. And as he's beating me, Mom comes, pulls me away. He says, come on. How can you stand there and just be beaten? But afterwards he says, but you didn't do things right. So he had the right to beat you, but I just think he went a bit too far.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. That. Yeah. You say you had been, 2 schools had been closed. Was it 3 schools? Just explain to us that experience of a school being shut down because of the war, exchange of guns, and what that did to you, and your education.
Trevor, the first to be closed was Mount St. Mary's, or Rusunzwe as they call it in Wedza. So we just opened for Form 3. And yes, the freedom fighters used to come to the school. We actually knew some of them by name. And of course, as you know, then they stopped the community from doing things like dipping cattle, just so to break the system. Yeah. And the dip tank, if the school was on high ground, and you'd go into a valley, up the valley, across the valley was the dip tank. So you could see the dip tank from the schoolyard. And the Rhodesian army came and ordered the community to bring their cattle for dipping. And of course, the army was there. The guerrilla said, this is good target. And as people, the army was there waiting for people to bring their cattle. The firing of guns started. And of course, it went on, spilled even into the schoolyard. And the eventual outcome was we had to close the school. So we quickly packed our trunks as they were then. We never took suitcases
to school. Your metal trunks?
The metal trunks. Yeah. Pack up, lock up, take your key, and we ran. Yeah.
So
and we literally just left everything.
That was the first
That was the first one. So went back home, and because it was a Roman Catholic school and because of the network of the Catholic schools, we were then offered a class at St. Francis of Assisi in Chivu. Went there, finished off Form 3. Just as we had opened for Form 4, there was a lone guerrilla, I'm sure some people might have heard of him, Simukai Tivapedze, who was operating in that area. And firstly, he wanted to recruit us to go to Mozambique. The first group ran into the army and came back before we left. And then he decided, no, it's time to close up. And that was the second to be closed. And so we had to journey home again. Then came my blackmailing of my father, as you put it.
Right.
And then word came, Kutama had offered us a class. As we got to Harare on our way to Kutama had closed. And so we then said, what do we do? Formed a group with some friends. And we went to a place called Batsiranai College in Highfield, in Western Triangle, to try and get a class. We tried, it didn't work. We formed our own study group, looked for our own teachers from Assisi and Mount St. Mary's, and we got going. But of course it was not formalized, it was not recognized, it didn't work. Then we decided to approach the headmaster of St. Mary's in Chitungwiza, who kindly offered us a class. And of course, we quickly filled it up.
Wow.
And that's where I then did second term Form 4 and third term Form 4 and wrote my O-levels.
Your O-levels. This hunger for education, where was it coming from? Had you seen what education had done to other people? Where did the inspiration come from? Wanting education so much and going out of your way to get that education, you and your friends?
Born in a rural setting, Trevor, and growing up in a rural setting, and looking at inspiring figures who had done back then. The main was teaching and nursing, and seeing how they'd changed their lives. To me, it was the only gateway out of my, call it subsistence farming rural setting. And therefore I was determined that, I would make it, and that was my way out. Yeah.
It's interesting because it reminded me as I was going through your story of my own life in the township in Magwegwe, where what we would do during the school holidays is to go to the nearest school and ask the headmaster to give us a class to be able to study, and because you had seen some people around you being successful, but much more importantly, the poverty that we were dealing with at home said to you, unless you did something, you're going to be stuck here.
You're going to be like that, and you have to do something meaningful and big to get out of here, and therefore also carry your family out of that.
Absolutely. And then A-levels. There's another interesting story there. You arrived late. Was it at Kutama?
It was at Goromonzi.
At Goromonzi. And you ended up not getting the subjects that you wanted. Tell us about that.
Okay. So my O-level passes were pretty balanced, arts and sciences. And I said I want to do sciences. And back then, because there were a lot less A-level schools, after the O-level results were out, at O-level, we were asked to give a priority of the schools you wanted to go to. I mean, you would relate to that. And of course, I put Goromonzi, Fletcher, and Hartsel. And the headmasters would then meet for a selection committee and select their candidates for A-level. And I was picked by Enias Chigwedere, who later on became Minister of Education, you remember. And of course, I was out there, Kumusha, in Gutu. And postal letters took time to come through. It eventually came through that I'd been given a place at Goromonzi. By the time I rocked up, everybody else was there. And classes had been formed, subjects allocated. And I don't know if he ever interacted with Chikwedere.
No.
He was fairly decisive, fairly firm. He says, young man, you late? Here are your subjects. In horror, I looked at the subjects. Shona, history, and English. I said, no, but I want arts. He said, do you want arts?
Sciences.
Sorry, I want sciences. Sorry, I want the sciences, He says, do you want sciences or do you want to do A-level?
That's a stark choice then.
So if you want to do A-level, that's your subjects. And by the way, you're so late, you can't go to any other school.
Wow.
And that was the end of the conversation.
Wow.
And there I was.
That choice is not a choice that will eventually get you to be a chartered accountant. I mean, that's...
But back then, the system was a little bit more relaxed. The system was worried about you passing your A-levels. Okay, unlike now where there's a prescription for mathematics if you want to do chartered accountants. If you don't have mathematics at A-level, you can't do it. So I chug along, and of course, I want to either be a lawyer first choice, second choice, business studies, third choice, economics. And again, you relate to this. Back then, when you were doing second term upper sixth, you'd write your subject choices at university. And those were my course choices at university. And as it happened, I had a friend who had a friend. And these friends from town used to come in and visit their girlfriends at Goromonzi. This friend broke up with his girlfriend, but he continued to come with his other friends. And we ended up, it was me and him sitting down and just chatting about life. And we actually got to get close. Then he said to me, what are you going to do at the university? I said, I'm going to do law. He said, why? I said, because that's what I like. He says, is that the truth or you don't know? He says, why don't you do accountancy? I said, what animal is that? How many legs does it have?
Yeah. You never heard of accountants in your life? No.
Certainly not articles of chartered accountancy.
Yeah.
So he then talked to me about it in a lot more detail and convinced me that I should do that. So I then changed my choice.
Trajectory, yeah.
Yeah, and said, I'll go for this. And so the accountants would tell you about debits and credits. I'd never known about that in my life till my first day in first year at university. And that's how I then started my journey to become a chartered accountant.
It must not have, it couldn't have been easy for you that first year, doing completely different subject that you'd never done before. Talk to me about that.
Absolutely, Trevor. The two nightmares. The first was learning the principles and concepts of accountancy, okay? Which, put nose to grinding stone.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Yeah.
Then one of the subjects was quantitative methods or statistics, which is to me the hardest part of mathematics. And I'd not done A-level mathematics. The guys who had done A-level mathematics walked it. I struggled. But as a result, I really worked hard in my first year. And guess what? My grades in first year were the best of my degree years.
Wow.
Of course, in second year, relax. I'm now all right.
Yeah.
I know this stuff. And then you get a bit of a shake.
Did you at any moment feel like I need to drop this thing and go back to doing law and economics? Or you're just determined to do this thing?
I was fiercely determined.
Why? Why suddenly the conversion to accountants from law?
The conversation with my friend, he was John. May you so rest in peace because he's late now. Was such that he convinced me. Then he introduced me to other people. They started pointing out, so and so, who has got this high position in commerce in the industry, is a chartered accountant. And of course, a lot of the examples were white people. And I then said to myself, I will make it. Okay.
What fascinates me about that episode of your life is what made me actually get to do this show. The instances, either through people, through events, that change the trajectory of our lives. Sometimes for worse, sometimes, but in most instances for good, through friends, through relatives, through wherever. Has that occurred to you as you look around the people that you work with, that you impact their lives?
Quite a lot, Trevor.
Yeah.
In fact, I was the pioneer accountant, not only in the wider family, but in the community where I originate from. And how that has inspired a lot more young men and women to become accountants, some of whom I've mentored, has been amazing. And
from that conversation.
With that
friend
one
of
conversation.
John, the late John.
And I can almost thank the then girlfriend for breaking up with him.
I mean, we're laughing, but that's fascinating, isn't it? Then you Tinashe, you then go on to become the first black managing partner at PwC. I mean,
yes.
Awesome stuff. You then also become the managing partner for Zimbabwe Malawi, and you've been so since July 2007. Yes. This is a hot seat, which explains why we've been chasing you for the past 4 months to have this conversation. Talk to me about what your day looks like, given this huge portfolio that you've got.
Thank you, Trevor. Firstly, I think it's an absolute privilege for me to have that position and a pleasure. But it's got quite a few demands. When I walked into that position or was promoted to the position, I had a vision of how I would split my time. And my vision was 1/4 of my time, it would be people issues, because I am so much into developing people because I think without people, nothing. In organizations, nothing. The second quarter would be the market, our clients. The third quarter would be administration. And the fourth quarter would be acting as an audit partner or an audit engagement leader, as we call it,
Right.
which is where I come from. It has not played out that well because of the pressures of the auditing world. So to solve that, you find that I'm a very early person in the office. 6 to 6:30, I'm in. That enables me to deal with issues before people come in. I can then run my tight diary after that and then remain behind again at the end of the day to sort of mop up or attend to the more demanding ones.
So 6:30 in the morning, 6 to 6:30 in the morning, and then you're out what time?
Usually not before 8.
Wow. That's hectic, eh?
It is hectic.
Yeah.
It is hectic.
Do you have a time for any other things?
I then, of course, go and try and pay my debt to the family.
Right.
But yes, I do have interest. I like watching sport, soccer, tennis, and cricket.
You were an athlete.
Yes.
You were very good at athletics, rather, when you were at school. Are you still running, jumping? And
I still do quite a bit of running.
Yeah.
I try, and each time, unless I'm in a place where I can't run, I'll try and run between 20 and 30 kilometers over the weekend. So try and put 20 on a Saturday and 10 on a Sunday. And before the lockdown, I would run my 10Ks in the morning.
Wow.
Before I go to work. Of course, the lockdown then did what it did, and the traffic is what it is.
You look fit, Tinashe.
Thanks, Trevor. I try. I used to look even fitter, but yeah. And then, besides running, I also do both indoor and outdoor cycling.
Well, fascinating from what you're saying is your love of developing people. That's rather, it doesn't fit well with an accountant. Accountant numbers people. Where does the love to develop people come from?
Right. I think from my own experience, the education I got, the training I got, when I went into the profession, I was fortunate enough to meet Michael Fradd. At that point, he was the deputy managing partner. And he sort of took me on and mentored on me right through. And in fact, it was actually quite interesting. When I qualified as a chartered accountant, there were lots of offers to go into commerce and industry. And I went to him and said, I like these offers, more money than you guys are giving me. Took my letter and threw it in the bin. I said, you are going to be a partner in this firm. And
you've stayed for a long time.
And forever.
Forever. Yeah.
And so when I look back, I feel that I must give back. And one of the ways to give back is to develop people in the following ways. Firstly, we recruit trainee chartered accountants every year. And then once they're in training, you sort of mentor them through. Only yesterday, I was actually welcoming our new recruits.
How many of them?
20 of them.
Wow.
And chatting to them, I always make sure I give them 2 hours on their first day. Go meet them, welcome them, introduce them to the organization, and then chat, open up and let them chat. And one young man says to me, what does it take to get where you got to? And I found that very humbling.
What did you say?
I said to him, firstly, it takes grace. Secondly, you've got to be focused and be prepared to work hard. You've signed a 3-year training contract. You might think it's long. When you look back 3 years later, it's nothing. You're still young. And you've got a very, very good opportunity. Use it. And finally, if you want to be mentored, I'm here.
As Nyaradzo, we strive to continuously bring convenience to our clients. Nyaradzo Group is proud to introduce Sawi, a new virtual chatbot assistant on WhatsApp. With Sawi, you are now able to interact with us from the comfort of your home and can be assisted anytime via WhatsApp with life assurance products, diaspora products, applying and assessing your policy, payment platforms, claims information, and any other queries concerning payments, policy information, or products and services. Simply WhatsApp Sawi on +263 712 992892 or visit the link showing on the screen to register and start interacting and receiving notifications from Sawi on WhatsApp. Now, join in and experience a new level of convenience 24 hours a day with Sawi.
Tell me, what do you think explains your success and your longevity at PwC right at the top?
I've got to go back to the roots, Trevor. My parents, rural as they were, had the following key things that they taught me and inculcated in me. First was hard work. Both my mother and my father never flinched from hard work. Very scant resources, but they worked hard for us. The second one is ethics. They were honest, straightforward people. My father used to have a saying, and I'll say it in Shona first and then try and translate, but I'm not a journalist, so I'm not good at translating. He says, "Kana pane ani chamayela kishandakajga ngareve ndimupe." Right?
Wow.
If I have taken anything from you without paying for it, let me know and I'll settle you. So he believed in an honest life. And I took that on. Yeah. And that blends a lot with the profession, the accountants, particularly the auditing line that I followed. You've got to be independent, you've got to be ethical, you've got to be honest, and you've got to be hardworking. And that is, really helped me. But underlying all that, I think I've had the fortune of being blessed, but also the fortune of meeting the right people who have taken me on and mentored me.
Okay.
The one thing that I've really enjoyed in my profession, and I always say to colleagues, take a lot of other very good or better professions even, but I don't know how many professions get you to interact across the economic sector. Every sector of the economy you get in there. How many professions open doors for you to have interactions and conversations in the suite of virtually every organization. And I've really enjoyed that.
It is very fulfilling mentoring young people. It is very fulfilling to what you just did, talking to the 20 young people coming in. Do you find these values that you hold so dearly that were inculcated in you by your parents? Are they present in the young people that you're mentoring, or are you battling at times?
We battle at times, Trevor, and you put it very well. And I think as society, we're failing. There's no doubt that we make heroes of unethical means of making money, or even crooked ways. And naturally, the young people look up to that and they see that. One of the things that I always tell our youngsters, whether they're the new recruits or they're those that, because we do trading continuously, is we are a profession that has to be ethical. And one of the ethics is anti-corruption. But unfortunately, we are an island of ethics in a sea of corruption. And you've got to battle with that. And in fact, yesterday, one of the young ladies said to me, "You've talked about ethics and us not being corrupt. What do I do when I go to an organization to get something done and somebody says, tenga coke?" What do I do?
Yeah.
Because They virtually asking for a backhander.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because I am very critical of my profession. But in doing so, I also realize that basically all of us have been compromised.
Absolutely.
The society that we live in,
Yeah.
whether you are a banker, you are a chartered accountant, you are a lawyer, they are now corrupt lawyers. They are corrupt chartered accountants.
Yeah.
They are corrupt journalists. How are we going to fix this, Tinashe? Does it ever cross your mind? Is it possible to fix this thing?
It's a very tough one, Trevor. It's firstly, I think it's an imperative that we fix it.
Right.
But how to fix it, in my personal view, I think we've got to go back to basics. In the school system and start there.
Yeah.
But also in the hierarchy. And I'm not just talking political hierarchy here. I'm talking business and economic and social and a civil hierarchy. We really have got to take this thing on seriously. Otherwise, it's embedding itself more and more and more. The ultimate result is it kills individuals, it kills organizations, then it kills the society, because it kills the economy.
What does fixing it look like to you? What does taking it head on look like to you?
To me, it looks like the political leadership, the business leadership, the social leadership, the civil leadership, coming together and saying, we draw a line in the sand and say, this is it. Not in terms of words, but action.
Right.
And then we lead by example. You know, you know this, Trevor, in leadership, tone at the top in terms of words and action is critical.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tinashe, let's move on to, you've led PwC through two hyperinflation periods. And I wanted to know from you what lessons that has taught you. You know, I sometimes wonder, I say to myself, these lessons that hyperinflation is teaching us, where else can we use them? These lessons that we should actually be having. Talk to me about the lessons that leading PwC into hyperinflationary periods has taught you, and the endurance of those lessons.
Right. I think there are a number, Trevor. Some of the major ones to me are as follows. The only constant in life is change. And try and anticipate that change as much as you can and be ready for it. Okay, I know we anticipated, but were we ready? Okay. The second one is to build resilient institutions that can weather the various storms. And to me, one of the pillars of building those institutions is to invest in people. When you have the people and the skills, you can literally ride out the storm.
Right.
The third one is that as leaders, we must be the last in line in terms of looking after ourselves. Because if you don't look after your people, then you'll have no people and you have no organization.
Leaders eat last.
Leaders eat last. But my word, quite often, leaders eat first. In PwC, you know, partners have their drawings every month. In months where we don't have enough cash flows, they are the last. First is my staff, then my suppliers, then the partners. So that was the other lesson I learned. The fourth lesson is that through all those difficult times, stick to your standards.
All right.
Because they'll always stand you in good stead. There was a very strong temptation for Zimbabwe to ditch international accounting standards. We stuck to it. Okay? Even with all the various statutory instruments, we had to stick to the law and not stick to the to the standards. There was a temptation to ditch those. I'm glad we didn't, because then the international community respects us for that reason, and we are able to be equal and good participants. I mean, our trainees, our chartered accountants, as we speak today, Zimbabwean chartered accountants, more than 50% of us are in the diaspora.
Wow.
And doing very well.
That attests to the kind of training that we've got in the
Absolutely. Even through all this,
Yeah.
you know, we lose at least 80%, at times 100% of the trainees as they qualify. And almost 80% of them go outside the country.
And the other thing is that I wanted to find out from you is the trust gap between the profession and your clients.
Right.
During hyperinflationary environment and in normal circumstances. You know, I find that there is a sense that if you're a big corporate, PwC will treat you well, or the other firms will treat you well. But if you're a little Ngcobo and Associates, you know, they kick you around. Is that a fair assessment?
Trevor, it inadvertently may happen now and again,
Yeah.
but is that a fair assessment? I don't think so, because once you take on a client,
Yeah.
you are obliged to look after them as well as you would the big conglomerates. And that's the way it should be. And we try and make sure that happens by having a direct line between the CEO of Ngcobo and Associates
Yeah.
and the partner that looks after them, so that, you know, should things start to slip down, you know, that call comes through and says, please do that. But I quite like your issue about the trust gap.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a trust gap. Unfortunately, there have been a number of failures of audits. Enron took away a whole Arthur Andersen, an international accounting firm, when we still used to be the big six. Then closer to home in South Africa, you know, we've had Steinhoff, we have had VBS. Tongat, yes. And the whole purpose of the auditing profession is to build trust in society and solve important problems. Build trust to the point where if you pick up a set of financials that is audited by any one of us, you can say, yes, I can rely on that. But we've had our failures, and we need to, and I'm glad the profession has really moved to close that gap, both voluntarily by the profession, but also by the regulators. We've really come in quite tough in terms of making the regulations more robust and more demanding, and the profession also raising its bar to close that gap.
I hear you and I see the efforts, but I find that no sooner has one scandal appeared in the rearview mirror than another one comes up. I mean, we have the fresh one, Wirecard, in Germany, and the auditors are implicated there, the financial regulators are implicated there. What's required for the profession to draw the line in the sand? I don't know if the men in the street or the corporates out there, when you say PwC has done these books, they feel as confident as we would have been when we were growing up, or you and I growing up. How do you remove that stain? How do you remove that taint for as long as possible?
And it is the most important, one of the most important things to do for the profession, because the technical ability is taken for granted. You got to be technically competent. So to me, we go back again to the basics. We build ethics, independence, and we interact more, the users and the profession, to find each other and to find those gaps and plug them.
Tell me, you've been a successful chartered accountant for such a long time. I'm going to ask you a very challenging question. if you were not a chartered accountant, what would you be? I'll tell you why I ask the question. Because if I was not a journalist, what would I be? I was saying to the other day to my colleagues that if I was to come back again, I would want to be a chartered accountant. I would want to be a lawyer. I would want to have a degree in technology so that I can build apps, make money, fight my own cases. What would you be?
I would actually be a lawyer.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Because it fascinates me. It's the delving into the issues, the reasoning, the researching, the going out there and putting up a case that is convincing and robust. If that was my first choice before I knew about accountancy, and I would have been a lawyer. And I also, when I was a student at university, we had a case in the family, and we couldn't afford a lawyer. And I actually went and I was the lawyer. And the magistrate said to me, "Are you a lawyer?" I said, "No, I'm not." Say, "I'm an accountant." Says, "You chose the wrong profession."
You were in the forefront of putting together the corporate governance code.
Yes.
Am I right that the corporate governance code is one that then feeds into the company, what is it called? The Companies Act. Companies Act. Am I right? That there's a connection between the two?
Yes, there is a connection.
Okay.
In that the Companies Act is about governing or formation, governance and monitoring of company activities. And the code is about the oversight function. Yes, so the two are related and they
What
feed
are
into
the
each
core
other.
principles as you were leading the steering committee of putting the code together? What were you trying to achieve? What was the focus of this assignment?
The focus was firstly recognizing that we have to have a code that governs the oversight of institutions in the country for us to step up and measure up to the international standards.
Okay.
Yes, there's King, yes, there's Cadbury, and so forth and so on. But
there was Cadbury. Is Cadbury still relevant?
in the UK, yes.
Okay.
In the UK. But there are certain specifics for Zimbabwe that King does not cover.
Right.
That Cadbury does not cover.
Okay. What are those specifics?
Okay. For instance, we had the issue of indigenization. Okay, not covered. I think we also have specifics about small-scale enterprises. If you look at our economy, the SMEs are probably the most significant part of our economy. You've got the public sector, okay, which is also a very big player. Yes, the public sector is a big player virtually in every country. But in this country, it's actually significantly more as a proportion of the total economy.
Right.
Yeah. And we felt that, we needed to just make sure that we covered those by having the Zimbabwe Code.
Okay. To tell me, Tinashe, interestingly, when I'm having these quality conversations with people, one thing that I find inspires the audience is not so much about our successes, but the things that we battle with, the instances when we've failed, and how we get up from failure. Do you have such instances to share? Has Tinashe ever failed? Has there been anything that's humbled you, apart from your dad whipping you? Yeah.
No spectacular or significant failure, if I can put it that way. But there are areas where I feel I could have done better.
Which are those areas?
For me, some of them are as follows. I always feel that we could service our clients better. And we should always strive to do better. There are times when a client shouts at you, and they do, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Okay. And you feel that, no, you know, if I had just stopped maybe one evening and taken a breath and said, oh, if I'd phoned Trevor and said, you know, there's this thing that we're doing together, you know, we've got this challenge, I'll come back to you in a day or two. That could have actually made Trevor happy. Okay. So that's one area.
Yeah.
The other area is back to staff development.
Right.
And I have now rectified that. But I failed in some instances where you identify young ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
That you really feel that they are future leaders in this organization. But you don't tell them. You know, you keep promoting them. But when you then sit them down and have a conversation with them that says, you know, you're so good at 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got these following improvement areas. But when I look at you, I see a manager in a year's time. When I look at you, I see a director in 3 years' time. And when I look at you, I see a partner in 4 or 5 years' time. That makes such a world of a difference to them. That continuous communication, letting them know and letting them know that you're appreciated. You know, one day we're coming from a meeting with a young lady and a young gentleman. And one of the things I do now is when I go to a meeting, unless I must, I do not do the presentation. I let them do it because they're still learning.
Yeah.
And that's part of the mentoring.
Yeah.
So when we're sitting in the car on the way back to the office, I said, guys, well done. That was fantastic. You know, you did so well on this and that and that, but on the next presentation, please watch this and that. The way they appreciated that, I've always continued to do that to this day.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's such a small thing, and yet the impact that it has is huge. But we don't do enough of that.
No, we don't do enough of that.
We get too busy with our own
Exactly.
lives and our own assignments, and we forget that simply saying, well done, thank you.
Pat on the back.
Yeah, we don't do enough of that.
Amazing what
Yeah.
he does. Yeah.
Was that done to you a number of times? Well done.
It
a
was
pat on
done
the
to me a
back.
number of
And what
times.
did it do to you?
Sheesh,
Yeah.
it just put so much fuel in me.
Yeah.
I could go to the moon and back.
And it still does right now, isn't
does.
it?
It does. It does.
I was talking to my wife this morning, and whenever somebody says, you look good, there's something that it does to you the whole day. You know, when somebody says, well done, but we don't do that. We don't celebrate each other enough.
That's very true, Trevor.
Yeah.
I mean, you know when the good lady has a hairdo and
Yeah.
you don't notice it.
You get into trouble.
You're in serious trouble.
There's a reason why you get into trouble.
Yeah.
Tonight you tell me, do you have any regrets? Is there anything that you look back in your life and say, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, or I wish I had done that?
Trevor, no. But there are things that are just, like I've just said,
Yeah.
I wish I could have done better. Yes.
What are you most proud of about your life?
To me, it's about the contribution I've done to uplifting my family. When I look back and I look at my mother, who is still around, and my dad before he passed, because he passed when I was already chartered accountant. And what it has done to change their lives, or the contribution I've done to change their lives, is the most satisfying thing for me. I'll give you an example of my father. Having grown up in the colonial era, and he falls ill when I'm working, and I just been 4 months into my work, so he had not been to Harare where I worked. I go and pick him up, and we come, get him for treatment and whatever. The first weekend, the first Saturday, we're sitting out in the garden and having breakfast. He says, son, now I can die, and I'll die a happy man.
That's sweet.
And I said, why? He says, we were not allowed to walk in the suburbs. Now I'm sleeping in the suburbs. I'm happy.
That's beautiful.
That was so touching to me.
Oh.
It was just unbelievable.
Oh.
So that's one source of satisfaction. The other one is how I've helped in my own small way to inspire certain elements in the family, in the community, in the wider economy, in terms of training and developing people.
looking at your life and going back to you being a head boy, I was also a head boy from Mzilikazi High School.
Right.
And I say to myself, clearly whoever said Tinashe should be a head boy had seen something in Tinashe, because look at where Tinashe has gone and what he's still doing. That system of choosing head boys was something else.
It really was. I don't know how they did it.
They're looking at it.
Don't even know what they look
Me,
for.
head boy?
Yeah.
Really?
How about so and so? And then, yeah.
Tinashe, what a life, an inspirational life. Talk to me about, you've stayed with PwC for how long now? That's the only job we've ever had.
That's the only job out of university into PwC or the then Price Waterhouse.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's both, Trevor.
Yeah.
I'm just about clocking 37 years
With PwC?
with PwC.
You know all the corners, all the notes?
No, 36 years, sorry. Yeah.
36 years.
No, somebody was reminding me the other day
Yeah.
that there's no furniture here which is older than you.
That's an advantage and a disadvantage?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
It's an advantage in that you really get to know the organization well, and hopefully you can play on the strengths to address the weaknesses of both yourself and the organization. But it's also maybe a bit of a disadvantage in that you've not opened up to the other world out there. Who knows what it might have done. But having said that, I've got no regrets about all my years and my life at PwC.
Fantastic. Yeah. Tinashe, I look at you and I admire you. You clean record, no whiff of scandal, as clean as what? Snow, whiter than snow. I don't know what the English expression is. Right. You inspire quite a lot of people, Tinashe.
Thank you, Trevor.
And we wish you all the very best. But before we say cheers, we want to know what books you have read. I love books, and our audience love books. They look forward to the book recommendations. What books, Tinashe, have you read that have inspired you or that have had an indelible mark on your life?
Trevor, I've read quite a number of books. If I go back into the past, funny enough, one of the books that inspired me was Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe.
Why?
His concept of the center holding or not holding, and when the center doesn't hold, things fall apart, was quite inspiring for me. So the center becomes important. Whether it's you or it's somebody else, the center becomes important. After that, I read a book called Socrates and the Fox, a strategic dialogue by Chandel Ilbery and Clem Santa. And in fact, I had the fortune of attending a strategy session with them as facilitators, Chantel and Clem. And the way they played the animal, the fox, and they concoct a conversation in the bush between Socrates and the fox. And they ask the so-called 10 questions, which is why they call it the dialogue, was fascinating. But for me, it opens up and says, I grew up a rural boy. I was interacting with these animals. And then how they survive when they are put into a position of like a corporate. Why can't we survive like that? That led me to my third book, which was After the Rain. Lessons from the Wild for Leaders and Organizations by Anton Frost. And how he brings in and says the spider creating and using the network, the leopard strategy, the lion leadership and teamwork, And then I love nature a lot, so I watch a lot of nature videos and documentaries, and I go out and see these animals. I've been fortunate enough to actually witness a lion kill. And you see that and you say, gee, these are the basics that make organizations work or fail, and how we can learn and must learn from that.
Wow.
Yeah.
The things that nature
Right.
has to teach us.
Absolutely. And then I round that off with Obama, Promise to Power, by David Mendel. Absolutely fascinating. And for me, what was fascinating was the self-confidence. It was not arrogance, the self-confidence that Obama had in 2004, just before he did his first Democratic Convention address. And there was a journalist who was telling him and asked him a question. And his answer was, I am LeBron, baby. And if you remember at that point, LeBron James was this teenager who was really, really burning a trailblaze in the American NBA. And that's how, and he said, I'm LeBron, baby. I know what I'm doing, and I've got a game to play.
Wow.
And, you know, you look at that and it inspires.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Tinashe, thank you so much for creating the time, you know, out of your very busy schedule. We wish you the best. I wonder what the next big thing for Tinashe is going to be.
Trevor, thank you very much for having me. It's been a great, great honor and privilege. The next big thing for me, I think I need to go and do something different.
Yeah.
Step away from the profession
Yeah.
when I still have the energy.
I look forward to seeing what that something different is. Tinashe, thank you so much.
I will share it with you. Thank you.
Allow me, Tinashe, to turn on to our viewers who are in Zimbabwe, who are on the continent and in the diaspora, who follow this show every week. Thank you for making this show the success that it has become. Remember, we are a weekly show up at 7 a.m. Central African Time on YouTube. To ensure that you don't miss out on any of these quality conversations like the one we've had today with Tinashe, please click onto this red button and subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll get a notification every time we have one of these quality conversations. We have gone a step further and created podcasts. Click below this video for your listening pleasure. Until next time for another quality conversation, cheers to you all.